When a problem will not yield, despite you bringing to it all that you can muster of spiritual consciousness, meditation and silence, what is the reason? What needs to take place in consciousness for the problem to be resolved? Here are the 7 spiritual steps that resolve any and every problem. Not one problem humanity experiences or can, including that which is termed natural disaster, has been proven to withstand the presence of God consciousness, the consciousness of oneness. All of humanity's problems, illness, disease, injury, lack, limitation, hate, unhappiness, loneliness, poverty, starvation, injustice, immorality, insecurity, disagreement, war, or natural disaster, are made impotent and become healed when the presence of spiritual consciousness is brought to the scene. Where the presence of the Lord, illumined consciousness, is, there is liberty. If you faithfully, with true dedication and devotion to truth and daily practice, study this book and start living, being, the consciousness of the 7 spiritual steps, you will behold any and every problem resolved or healed and harmonized, and in its place emerge, sometimes spontaneously, sometimes within a few hours, days or weeks, the time matters not, a new and truthful person, body, place and condition. Indeed, the image and likeness of truth, harmony and peace amongst all emerges as the new reality. In this way, and as the most practical of experiences, you discover the greatest of all secrets, the sacred truth taught and demonstrated by every spiritual master and prophet throughout the ages. God truly is individual being. I am that I am. And heaven truly is earth. As in heaven, so on earth. Step 1. Consciousness. God is consciousness, and because God is all, consciousness is all. Because consciousness is all, you are that. You are all, and all is you. The entire universe of you is actually and literally the one consciousness individually existing as, being, the you are, your consciousness. Consciousness is the I of you, the entirety, the infinity, the omnipresence of existence, being the fullness of itself as the fullness of individual you. I and the Father, God, are one. God is one, indivisible, inseparable, omnipresent, and unconditional. The whole, unconditionally, fully and tangibly existent at and as every point of itself at the same time. God is consciousness, and consciousness is one, indivisible, inseparable, omnipresent, the whole, unconditionally existing as everything everywhere. All is one, consciousness, the whole, fully and indivisibly being, your individual being, the consciousness you are and have, your universe and everything in it and of it. The whole of God is, unconditionally, and is fully embodied and tangible in and as your consciousness, the infinity of you, the entire experience from the deepest atom and cell in your body to the farthest star. Never is even a grain or second of your experience not God. All is God, period. The whole of God, therefore the whole of infinity, is within, just as the whole of the movie is within the reel of film running through the projector, not out there on the screen. In truth, there is quite literally no out there. There is only consciousness, which is perhaps most easily described as being within, not a physical within, but in or as pure consciousness. The Master taught us of oneness. Make the inner the outer, and make the outer the inner. Make all sensed place omnipresent one and oneness. Realize that you are not a personal being in a world out there, separate and apart from you, but that all of you, all of your consciousness, all of your experience, your universe, and every detail and grain of it is connected. More than connected, it is omnipresent one or oneness itself, consciousness itself, one you being one experience. Therefore, experience, good or bad, does not exist out there where it appears to exist. There is no out there. There is only in and as consciousness. So you can see that a problem does not exist where it appears to be, out there somewhere, even out there in the body. Nor is it what it appears to be, physical appearing ill health, disease, accident, lack, limitation, insecurity, immorality, loneliness, poverty, danger. All is consciousness. All. The problem is a matter of consciousness, not anything else or anywhere else, because there is none else but consciousness. Let us first realize that a problem is not unyielding out there, but in here, in and as individual consciousness. Never blame a person, condition, time or place for any problem, who or that which appears to be or appears to be happening out there, nor blame collective consciousness. Any and every problem is a problem of false belief alone. False belief unwittingly and unknowingly, until we know truth, stuck in individual consciousness. Therefore, there alone, in and as individual consciousness, is where the work is done and the harmony witnessed. Once consciousness is harmonized, the outer appearing problem harmonizes, because consciousness and experience are one. Knowing this, the first thing to do is turn away from where and what the problem appears to be to within, to consciousness, to your very own consciousness, in the realization that your consciousness is the one consciousness, the one place of being, omnipresent life, body, relationship, place and condition that is God, Spirit, truth, where no disease, discord, insufficiency or limitation exists, where only God itself is, therefore only life, love, harmony, peace and plenty is, truth is, and is fully existent. Make sure you understand, a problem, any and every problem, no matter what its deemed category or state of seriousness, is never what it seems to be. It is a problem of false belief alone, false sense alone, happening in and as the individual consciousness of the one experiencing it. For this reason, the work of witnessing truth as real, where untruth appears to be real, is a work of and in and as individual consciousness alone. Turn now to consciousness alone. Let go of the idea of material activity solving material problem. Indulge not even a material thought about the problem or its seeming material solution. Leave it alone for the false belief it is, and turn here to consciousness alone. You are now in the realm of God, of fully manifest truth, infinity, and omnipresence. Here, become rested, relaxed, and gently receptive to the deep peace and all-pervasive truth of consciousness itself. God is. Consciousness is. Spirit is. Spirit is and fills and is being all that I am. Spirit is and fills all space within and as me, my world, my universe. Peace is. Peace is and fills and is being all that I am. Peace is and fills all space within and as me, my world, my universe. Harmony is. Harmony is and fills and is being all that I am. Harmony is and fills all space within and as me, my world, my universe. Oneness is. Oneness is and fills and is being all that I am. Oneness is and fills all space within and as me, my world, my universe. Step 2. The only visible presence is God. Because all is God, all is consciousness, everything in consciousness, everything everywhere observed and experienced, without exception, no matter what its name or type, no matter if it is so-called animate or inanimate, is God. The only visible presence is God. The only presence, period, is God. The only consciousness is God. Presence, no matter what type of presence belief judges and describes it to be, is 100% God itself, because there is none else. I am the Lord, and besides me there is none else. I, God, consciousness, am the infinite omnipresence. Therefore, besides omnipresent infinity, there is none else. Think, that which is the infinitude itself leaves no room, no space, no possibility for anything other than infinity to exist. Hence, besides me, infinity, there is none else. With truthful awareness of God being all, infinity and omnipresence being all, therefore logically all that possibly can be experienced, realize the only thing that can ever present itself to you is God. The only existence is God. Consciousness, infinity, omnipresence. Therefore, the only thing that can ever present itself to you is God. Consciousness, infinity, omnipresence. Even to finite human intelligence, that makes logical sense. That which is the only, the all, is the only possible observable thing, the only possible experience, because nothing but the only, the all, exists. The only him, her or it, the only condition, amount, activity, the only anything and everything everywhere you observe or experience, despite its appearance, is in fact God, Spirit, Truth. The Master tells us this: if you see me, you see the Father who sent me, who is the very presence I am. He also tells us, do not judge by the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. The righteous judgment is the recognition and acceptance that all is God, Spirit, Truth, and none else. Why then do we seem to experience everything but God? Why do we experience life as corporeal when God is incorporeal? Finiteness when God is infinite? Why, when God is omnipresence, do we experience objectivity and local presence? Why, when God is spirit and truth, is our body flesh, bones, blood, function and organ? Why do our human mind, body and world consist of both good and bad qualities and characteristics when God is all? God is one, God is infinite and omnipresent, and God is good alone. Why are we and our world subject to the dark experiences of ill health, disease, injury, infirmity, lack, limitation, insecurity, immorality, injustice, greed, atrocity, and disaster, when God is light and in him is no darkness at all? The answer is sense. We are having a corporeal sense of that which is 100% incorporeal. The corporeal sense in and of its own self is not an entity. Even though it is false sense, it is not false entity. It appears to be, but it is nothing, just sense. Sense alone is innocent and impotent. Let's never believe sense to be false entity, but certainly let us understand it as nothingness, impotent, unreal, imaginary, assumption, conjecture, speculation. Sense, because it is just sense and not reality, does not have power. Therefore, it has no power of existence, no power to change reality, to change that which is God, Spirit, Truth. I could sense that your blue shirt is grey, and I could really believe it. But that sense doesn't have the power to change the blue to grey. The blue remains blue even while I sense it to be grey. I could sense it will rain this afternoon, and I could really believe that sense. But the sense doesn't change a clear blue sky to cloud and rain. The clear blue sky remains clear and blue even while I sense cloud and rain. We sense the incorporeal, the only, the one reality and truth to be corporeal. But that sense does not change the incorporeal to corporeal. Sense does not and never can, not for a second, change truth, spirit, the incorporeal, the nature, quality, characteristic, and presence that is God and God alone, Spirit and Spirit alone. Indeed, sense is nothing but sense, with not an iota of power or reality to it whatsoever. This is why the Master told us, judge not by the appearance, the sensed appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Judge, know, realize that all is in fact, in truth, in reality, despite the way in which it appears, incorporeal, God, Spirit, truth, and none else. What I sense is not truth. Only truth itself is truth. Therefore I rest, released and detached from all sense, in the very presence of God, which my consciousness is. Everything of me, everything, everywhere, every aspect and condition of my entire being and experience is not what sense has it appear to be. I know this now. I know the wondrous truth that all is God, Spirit, truth despite appearance. I continually rest in the guidance of Jesus. Judge not by the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. From morning to night and night to morning, I keep my mind filled with God, Spirit, as being all. Step 3. God is. One of the common reasons a problem does not yield is the student's indoctrinated belief that God and experience are separate or different from each other. The individual who hasn't yet awakened to the truth of oneness, omnipresence, believes spirit and matter to be different states or places or conditions or forms. It is believed that spirit, which is the truth and completeness of life, love, harmony and peace, must by some spiritual or miraculous act of consciousness turn itself into demonstrated material good, that the infinite must make its qualities tangible to the finite, that omnipresence must bring its harmony and completeness to local presence, that the incorporeal, inclusive of all its qualities, must be witnessed corporeally, objectively, personally. This is false idea that can never evidence truthful experience. Let us understand, only God is. God is unconditionally the omnipresent whole of itself. None else but God exists, and because God is omnipresence itself, there exists none but omnipresence as each and every point of infinity simultaneously. Not a grain or breath of infinity, wherever you were to travel throughout its boundless vastness, is lacking, incomplete, or being something other than the unconditional completeness and fullness of itself alone. To entertain any other idea is not only false but nonsensical when we know that only God is, and God is the infinitude itself, consisting of none else. Indeed, oneness cannot consist of itself alone and something else. If there was something else, one never would have been one, but two. But truth tells us only one is, that one being God, Spirit, unconditionally the whole of itself as every point or place of itself. Now think, if omnipresence is, which it is, and occupies each and every point of infinity at the same time, which it does, what is the only possible experience? What is the only possible being, body, thing, place, or condition you can observe? God, Spirit, omnipresence. You and your world, inclusive of absolutely everything everywhere of it and in it, are not somehow outside of infinity or different from infinity. Being outside of infinity is impossible, being different from infinity, the absolute all and absolute only, is equally impossible. You all must be and are that. Don't for this moment be concerned about appearance, why appearance appears to be objectified, local, or different matter or body, of its own power or nature or character. We'll understand appearance a little later. For this moment, simply acknowledge the one truth. If God, which is spirit, truth, omnipresence, is infinite, is the infinitude itself and the fullness thereof, and if infinity by its very nature cannot have anything else in it, or different from it, or outside of, or additional to it, then, indeed, God is all. Because of what but infinity could that else or different consist? Where but within or as infinity, therefore infinity itself, would outside or additional to infinity exist? Of course it cannot. Indeed, this is the one and absolute truth. God is all. All, without exception. And God is unconditional. I am the Lord, and besides me there is none else. I and the Father are one. Be still and know that I am God, the very I that is the I of you. I, your consciousness, your being, the infinity and omnipresence of it, every breath and grain of it, unto infinity and eternity, is God, and the fullness thereof, and none else. God is what I is, what consciousness is, all of what I, consciousness, is. There is nothing else of or about or contained in I, in consciousness, than God, the only, the all, the infinitude itself, being the whole of itself as individual you and universe. Now, to fully understand what God is, the nature, quality and presence of God, therefore your truth, we add one word: already. God is already. God is complete, finished, whole, perfect, already. There is no such thing as unfinished God, incomplete God, intangible God, invisible God, undemonstrated God, unavailable God, impractical God. And because God is all, there being only one, the one life, one body, one presence, one world, you are that. Every grain, every place and moment of your world is that. I am that I am. As that, you are and have the whole of God already. Son, I am ever with you, and all that I have is yours. Not will be yours, not conditionally yours, not dependent on how good you are or become, or how rapidly you stop being bad. No, all that I have is yours, and yours unconditionally, because I and the Father are already unconditionally, eternally one. There is not God and you, or you and God. There is not God and world. There is not God and period. God, infinity, omnipresence, cannot have, and indeed does not have, an and. Indeed, you and all beings are and have the whole of omnipresence already. So think, If there is no unfinished, incomplete, invisible, intangible, or undemonstrated God, good, which there is not, then there is no unfinished, incomplete, undemonstrated, invisible, or intangible you. You meaning the whole of you, the whole of your consciousness, your being, your experience, your world, and every detail of it down to the last grain. God and I, being, are one, not two. I and the Father are one. God is individual being. All being is the one Father God, Mother God being. The one life, one body, one presence, one universe, one everything everywhere, being individual and unique life expression. The whole is the one in infinite, individual and unique expression, but always one and of oneness. My Father and your Father, the Master tells us, the one that is all, the oneness of all, the one truth of all being. Because God is already, nothing of God is given or withheld. God and the fullness of God is unconditional, present already and forever. The whole already is. God is principle, in fact, the almighty one principle itself. Principle unconditionally is, and is fully and unconditionally available wherever you are and whatever state of being you happen to be in, good or bad, free or bound, happy or suffering. Principle doesn't know how you are or where you believe you are. It simply is, and is being the fullness of itself as you and for you. Nothing of principle can give or withhold itself because it already is. It can be no more or less than that which it already and eternally is, whole. For instance, the principle of mathematics unconditionally is. The whole infinity of mathematics exists fully present right where you are this minute and wherever you might go in a minute's time, next hour, next day, or next year. Fully present with you this very second, in you and outside of you, the whole of mathematics exists. It exists unconditionally. You cannot earn it by being a good person, nor can you lose it by being a bad person. It simply is, and its is unconditional. There is also no inner versus outer for mathematics, nor any principle. As principle, all is the one place, the place of fullness, wholeness, completeness, infinity, omnipresence, eternity. Again, this is why the Master told us, make the inner the outer, and make the outer the inner. Because all is one place, the place of unconditional omnipresence. Do you not know that the place on which you stand is holy ground, whole, omnipresence ground? You or I being aware or unaware of the principle of mathematics doesn't make any difference to mathematics being wholly existent right where we are and at any place we may go throughout the infinitude. Wherever we are, there is the whole of the principle. Mathematics cannot give us any more of itself, neither can it withhold any of itself from us. It is incapable of being anything but the whole of itself everywhere, equally, simultaneously, fully and freely present. The infinity of numbers and calculus exists in the palm of our hands, and equally in the palm of every hand, and at every point or place throughout the universe. If we do not know of mathematics being fully present and unconditionally available, it is as if it is not present for us. If we know a little of mathematics, we can have the tangible experience of that little. We can do and benefit from basic math, but no more. If we know more, we have the experience of that more. We experience and benefit by the measure we have, we know. If Pythagoras was standing shoulder to shoulder with us as we were experiencing the little of math we have, he would be experiencing the highly illumined and complex measure he has. Complex math which would bewilder us. Watching Pythagoras live with complex math would be as a miracle to us who have only primary or high school math. Yet always the whole of math is fully and equally present both where Pythagoras is and where we are simultaneously. Individual awareness of math is the only difference between Pythagoras and the miracles of math he has versus the little we have. If we add 4 plus 4 and make 7, or 9, or 38, it has nothing to do with math being unavailable or imbalanced, incomplete, or incorrect. The 7, or 9, or 38 is our lack of awareness of the principle of math. The perfectly whole and harmonious 8 is present all the time, wherever we are. But we have to be consciously aware of it before we can have it, benefit by it, and express it in our lives, in our work, and for the world. In this very way, God is. God fully is. The entirety of God is in and being, full and perfect harmony as you, as everything of you and your universe, this second and forever. Wherever you are, whether you are fully aware, partially aware, or unaware of the existence and presence of God, the whole is right where you are, being the fullness of you, and forever fully and freely available to your experience. I am ever with you, and all that I have is yours, whether you know it or not. It is the knowing it that accesses the boundless good that is God as the truth of being. Whether you are on the far side of the moon or the far side of earth, on top of the highest mountain or the bottom of the deepest ocean, whether you are healthy, happy, and prosperous, or ill, unhappy, or poor, whether in peace or war, there the whole of God is. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. God is one, the only, the all. God is forever the same, unchanging and unchangeable, complete and perfect, indivisible and inseparable, incapable of being anything different. As one, omnipresence, God does not change its nature, its character, its type, its presence, its form. God is incapable of change. What power of change could exist when God itself is the one, infinite, omnipresent, and only power, omnipotence? The only existent power, the power, presence, and form of one, cannot exert power against itself to change that which it is, to become something different. Even if there were such a power, which there is not, where would the different presence or form exist in the infinity of one power, one presence? The very idea is nonsensical. The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. All already is. This is the great key to awakening. God all already is. The minute we believe that in any way God is incomplete, we are lost and remain lost until the day we awaken to is. And because God is already, nothing is given or withheld, nor ever can be. Is. The fullness of is, incapable of being anything different or less, or separate or divided. The whole cannot give anything more of itself to itself. It already is and has it, that being infinity, omnipresence, and eternity. Nor can that which is eternally one and complete already withhold something of itself. Again, it already is and has it. Because God is already, harmony is already, and besides harmony there is none else. Completeness, love, abundance, peace, happiness, and utter fulfillment of being and world is already, and besides these there is none else. Because there is none else, you are that. You are nothing but that, because there exists no life, no being, no body, no world, but that one, in and as the entirety of the infinitude. If you are ill, you cannot get more health or more life or improved or healed life from God. God is not withholding life. God cannot withhold life. God is principle. God is already being the entirety of life as your life. All that I have is yours. Your lack of health is not a lack of the presence of life, because such a lack is impossible. Life is principle, the one principle, fully and always present. A lack of the experience of health is a lack of conscious awareness of life being the only life there is, which you always are and forever have. If you lack dollars, you cannot get more dollars from God or more dollar opportunity from God. God is not, nor ever can be, withholding. God is already being the entirety of wealth itself, everywhere present as all form, including that of dollars, just as the entirety of math and math's infinity of numbers are everywhere present. Your lack of dollars is not a lack of the presence of wealth, because such a lack is impossible. Wealth is principle, the one almighty principle itself, fully and always present. A lack of the experience of dollars is a lack of conscious awareness of wealth, God itself, being the only form, the infinity of all form, including dollars, infinity always being what you are and forever have. If you lack love or peace or harmony, you cannot get more of these from God. God is not withholding them, which he would have to be if he were able to give you more. God is already being the infinity of love, peace and harmony itself, everywhere present as all being, form, place, and condition. Your lack of love or peace or harmonious condition is not a lack of the presence of these, because such a lack is impossible. God is principle, and God is love, is peace, is harmony itself, fully and always everywhere present. A lack of the experience of love, peace or harmony, or all three, is a lack of conscious awareness of God, the one principle itself, being the only existence and form which you already are and forever have. It is for this reason that, indeed, there is no unfinished, incomplete, undemonstrated, invisible, intangible, lacking, or limited you. Ah, but you say there is. You say there is much incompleteness, inharmony, lack, and limitation in your life. There is much still to be fulfilled. Yes, because you are looking finitely, corporeally, objectively, locally, personally, instead of as oneness. You are judging by appearance when the Master has instructed, judge not by the appearance. You are being the consciousness of finiteness when your truth of being is infinity. You are being the consciousness of local presence when your truth of being is omnipresence. You are believing objective sense in and of its own self when the Master has made it clear that he, she, or it of its own self is nothing. You are being the consciousness of corporeality when the truth of consciousness is incorporeal. You cannot witness that which you are not. You cannot expect truth to be untruthful for you. You cannot expect God to be visible and tangible in or as or for matter, corporeality. That would be like expecting light to be dark. Choose ye this day whom you will serve, God or mammon, matter. This is all well and good, but how does one choose God instead of mammon or matter? How does one lift into truthful consciousness? How does one be the consciousness of incorporeality, infinity, omnipresence, and eternity when sensed experience is pressing and demanding with its very real suggestions of lack, limitation, ill health, immorality, or insecurity? The answer lies in understanding mind and form. Step 4. God, mind, form. Let us understand appearance, this world, its nature, its character, its dynamic, its reality, its truth, and why it appears as it does to sense. With a clear understanding of this world, we are free as and in truth. Know the truth, and that very truth will set you free. All formation is of mind. Mind and form are one and the same thing, or presence, or happening. There is no and, there is just is. Mind is form. Form is mind. Form is not an entity in and of its own self. Mind does not observe or experience form. Mind is form. Form is not being observed by mind. Form is mind. Mind is form. The question, therefore, is what is mind? Once we know what mind is, we also know what form is, because mind is form. Form is mind. As always, the first thing to do is get immediately back to God, pure God. Only God is. Only God is, and God is unconditionally whole and omnipresent. Therefore, God is all, without exception. We must take God is all, without exception, literally. Then our consciousness is open to hear and receive truth. Here is that truth, a truth known only by the few enlightened beings of each age, now given to you. If you can truly hear this, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, if you have sufficient spiritual discernment, you will discover the greatest secret of the ages. To paraphrase the Master, whoever discovers this truth will be untroubled by that which appears to be, will live free in truth, will witness fulfillment of all, and not taste death. There is one consciousness, God. Yet there are infinite degrees or levels of individual awareness of the One. Just as there is only the one math, yet infinite degrees of awareness of that One. The Master gave us the secret of consciousness. There are many mansions in my Father's house, followed by, if it were not so, I would have told you. The many mansions are the many infinite degrees of conscious awareness of God, of truth. Right where you are is the infinity, is the omnipresence of God, the almighty truth of being and experience, being the very you are. Despite this great truth, our awareness of God as individual being is our individual experience. Consciousness is experience. Our degree of conscious awareness is our tangible experience. Experience, both good and bad, appears convincingly real to us. It is false sense of the real, not reality itself. Yet every degree or level of consciousness appears to be real at and to its own level. As our consciousness becomes ever more spiritual, our experience becomes ever more beautiful, bountiful, harmonious, and fulfilled. And so by the degree we individually are either unaware or aware of God as the only, is the degree of truth, health, wealth, love, harmony, peace and fulfillment we experience as the reality of life. The degree we call human awareness is the one human collective mind consisting of what has been named mentality and matter. It is what we call this world, the physical, material world, everything in it and of it, experienced as 5 senses and 3 dimensions. Each degree of awareness, each of the many mansions of my Father's house, is infinite in and of its own degree, excluding none of infinity. Every degree, including the human degree of consciousness, is infinite, because only infinity is. The whole of infinity exists at every point of itself, degree, level, or awareness, at the same time. It is for this reason that we can have as much of humanity and all the things and conditions of this world as we wish to have. Nothing is limited, nothing is separate, nothing is apart. All is infinite and omnipresent, and because all is God, the truthful infinity and omnipresence we are and have is good alone. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. You may believe that today you lack something of health or wealth or love or peace or harmony or safety. Yet the whole of God, the whole of the infinitude is right where you are, being what you are and what your world experience is. This means that all of life, abundance, love, harmony, and utter fulfillment of being, all that God is where you are this minute, fully tangible as the need fulfilled. As we know the truth, as we fill our consciousness with truth, morning, noon, and night, we discover our truthful identity, the man of Christ, the spiritual being who toils not, neither does he spin. Yet Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed as beautifully and bountifully in all the world's goods. When we understand that this world is nothing but God appearing as our experience with 5 senses and 3 dimensions of mind, we have awakened to the truth and treasure of heaven as earth. Mind is simply a faculty of experience, or an avenue of awareness, as Joel Goldsmith termed it. Mind happens to, at the human degree of consciousness, consist of 5 senses and 3 dimensions. But the 5 senses and 3 dimensions do not change God. Mind is not a power. Only God is power. Mind does not change God into different form, substance, characteristic, presence, truth. All form is 100% God and of God, utterly unchanged and unchangeable, because nothing but God is. Just because the mind forms God into 5-sensed and 3-dimensional experience does not in any way change God. Nothing, including mind, can change God, the one and only power. Throughout the ages, the quandary of this world has fooled most truth students, thereby keeping them out of truthful experience. How can form which appears to be corporeal, finite, local, variable, and temporal, consisting of many different powers of both good and bad, be God, when God is the only, incorporeal, infinite, omnipresent, invariable, eternal, and of one power alone? The key is found in 3 of the Master's statements. I am in this world, but not of it. Judge not by the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Know the truth, and that very truth will set you free. I am in and experiencing the world of form, this world, just as you are and as the whole of humanity is. But form is not what it appears to be. It is God alone, unconditioned, unchanged, pure and whole, because nothing can condition or change God. Only God is. There is nothing but God, therefore nothing that could condition or change God, even if it were possible, which it is not. The mind simply forms of God, of oneness, 5-sensed and 3-dimensional experience, imagery. But that experience or appearance does not make it of its own self real, any more than the experience or appearance on the movie screen makes it of its own self real. The images on the movie screen are nothing of their own selves. They have no truth in and of their own selves. Their truth is whatever the reel of film is and contains. Neither the light nor the screen have power to change the truth of the film, its character, nature, activity, plot, and conclusion. In this way, we realize that the images of life, that which we call the this world experience, are nothing of their own selves. Their truth is God, and everything God is and has, and nothing else. There is none else. Their actuality here and now is God. Nothing has to change before form becomes truth, because nothing has been changed in the first place. Their substance, presence, form, and activity are all God. Remember, the only visible presence is God. The only is God. The only him, her, or it that can ever present itself to you is God. Because form appears to be a real entity in and of its own self, a real him, her, or it of either good or bad quality and nature, does not make it so. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Why judge not by the appearance? Hear this closely. Because God is, and is unconditioned and unconditional principle, and because God is mind, mind is as equally unconditioned and unconditional. God and mind are one, not two different things or states or presences or activities. And because mind is form, form is as equally unconditioned and unconditional. God is mind, one of the many mansions in my Father's house, is form, all one. Whatever and whoever you observe is God, mind, form, all one, all unconditioned and unconditional God, simply observed or experienced as 5 senses and 3 dimensions at our level of consciousness, but never changed, never different, because nothing, absolutely nothing, has the capability of changing God. All form, this entire universe, world, and absolutely everything everywhere in it, is nothing in and of its own self, is innocent and impotent. Form in and of its own self has no power, no law, no principle, nothing to uphold it in or of its own self. Of its own self it has no substance, no power, no law, no principle, no body, no ability, either of good or bad. Why then, if all form is unconditioned and unconditional God, nothing of its own self, without law or principle to uphold it, does the experience of form contain both good and bad? Why does disease, lack, limitation, loneliness, depression, immorality, and injustice exist with millions suffering if God is all? Why does the particular problem I am experiencing fail to yield, especially if I have been a truth student for many years, and if no problem exists in the truth of experience? Step 5. Belief. Individual consciousness is individual experience. If form is believed to be an entity, a reality of its own self, something separate and apart or different from God, that belief and the degree of it is the believer's experience. It takes a believer to experience that which is believed. But remember the Master's instruction: judge not by, believe not, the appearance, but judge by righteous judgment. Realize that form, appearance, is nothing of its own self, yet actually is the very presence of God itself. If there is remaining material belief, it is that false belief, outpictured as a problem, which is experienced as unyielding. The unyielding belief is experienced as the unyielding problem. The problem in and of its own self is nothing, unreal, impotent, without any law or principle to uphold its experience in your life, and as such unable to cause or perpetuate lack, limitation, pain or suffering of any category. The belief and the attachment to the way in which it appears as bad form is the only actual problem. Detach from the appearance, the form as being an actual entity, something real you have to deal with and solve of its own self. Then drop the false belief, and in truth you will witness the problem dissolve as easily, naturally, and quickly as dark dissolves in sunlight. The minute you detach and stop being a believer of false belief, the minute you release God and lift into truthful consciousness, you are and have the power of truth, and you begin witnessing all form become truthful. One with God is a majority. It takes one truthful consciousness to witness the healing of every discord, disease, lack, and limitation presented to it. 10 righteous men can save a city. In fact, just one of truly illumined consciousness, spiritual consciousness, devoid of belief in matter as being real in and of its own self, is enough spiritual presence to witness miracles everywhere in life. The consciousness of God, the presence and power of God happening in and as individual consciousness, dominates and governs experience. All form reacts and responds, and harmony prevails. The Master gives us the secret in Luke 12:22-32. Take no thought for your life, none of appearing life, either good or bad. The life is more than food, and the body is more than raiment. Life, that which appears to your senses, is more than it seems to be. Despite the way in which it appears, either good or bad, it is God itself, already forever whole and perfect, finished and omnipresent wherever and everywhere you are. Which of you, by taking thought, can add to your stature, to the already whole and manifest truth of God as individual being, individual you? 1 cubit. Why then take thought? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not, and yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothed the grass, the least of all form, which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, is temporal and of little value in and of its own self, how much more will he clothe you, the highest consciousness of being, the God of your universe, O ye of little faith? Seek not ye what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink. Seek not anything to do with any form in and of its own self, either more of the good of life, or less of the bad of life. Neither be ye of doubtful mind, neither doubt that God is all, despite all and the most convincing and suggestive appearance. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God. Seek to ever maintain spiritual consciousness, and all these things shall be added unto you, added unto your experience. The light of truthful awareness shall shine through the fog of false sense, revealing the image and likeness of God as all form. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. It is the good pleasure of spiritual consciousness to fill material consciousness, false sense, with its light of completeness and fulfillment, the fulfillment that is truth, just as it is the sun's good pleasure to fill the dark with light. Spiritual consciousness is fulfilled experience. Spiritual being has nothing to demonstrate. He finds all already manifest and demonstrated, God as whole and perfect form. He finds, when observing that which to material sense is lacking, needed, undemonstrated, or unfulfilled, that his spiritual consciousness quickly fulfills the lack or need of material sense. Material sense is fed, nourished, and lifted by spiritual consciousness. Spiritual consciousness throughout the ages and in every situation presented to it witnesses in and as and through its matter-free presence, the presence of God consciousness, fulfillment in the place and as the form material sense witnesses as lacking, diseased, or discordant. Where the presence of the Lord is, there is liberty. Step 6. Meditation, silence, and receptivity. All is consciousness. Therefore, all of experience, despite the way it appears as form, is the experience of consciousness happening. All is the presence and activity of consciousness. Because one with God is a majority, as individual consciousness lives and moves and has its being in God, it keeps itself clear and empty of material belief. The Spirit-filled consciousness is matter-free. Free of matter, consciousness is transparent, empty, a nothingness of its own self, a vacuum. And because God abhors a vacuum, consciousness is filled to overflowing with God, Spirit, truth as all. Therefore, with nothing else in consciousness, nothing else but God, Spirit, truth, is experienced as form, as this world. The constant meditation of God as all keeps consciousness filled with truth instead of untruth. This is the key, keeping consciousness filled with truth, and by so doing, keeping untruth out of consciousness. The consciousness filled with truth is the consciousness consciously one with God as all, connected with and as God, at one with God. I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye, except ye abide in me. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather them, and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit. Keep your awareness in heaven rather than on earth. Meditate morning, noon, and night on the presence of God, on the truth of Spirit being all. Meditation does not have to be a formal sitting down, but is the constant contemplation of truth, the keeping of the mind on God. Make the majority of each 5 minutes God awareness. This is the key, the constant meditation of God. It is a discipline very few truth students exert. The harvest is rich, but the labourers are few. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Keep your mind filled full with God awareness 24 hours a day. In this way alone is consciousness kept high in spirit and matter-free, fertile for the almighty presence and power of God to be witnessed as truthful experience. None is arrayed so beautifully and bountifully with the world's goods as the one whose consciousness is filled full of spirit, because the silver is mine, and the gold is mine, says the Lord, and the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. Consciousness filled with God awareness has only to be still and behold God in action as harmonious experience. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and see the salvation, the harmony of the Lord, which he will show to you this day. A silent and receptive consciousness is the miracle witnessed. In and as the silence and vacuum of consciousness, God flows into tangibility, revealing the image and likeness of itself as form. The problem is solved. Silence in which God is felt happening within is fulfillment witnessed. It is when we no longer have anything to demonstrate, because as spiritual consciousness we are already complete and whole as God felt happening, that the consciousness we are being is evidenced as harmonious form. The fulfillment we are being as spiritually complete consciousness is the form of itself witnessed, the image and likeness of God, as in heaven, so on earth, as in consciousness, so on earth, as form. Consciousness is experience. Do you see this now? Step 7. Living truth. The final step in solving any and every problem, this being that at which most truth students fail, is the practical living of truth. We can know and even experience within all the truth God has, but if we do not also live as and by truth, we'll no more witness truthful experience than dark can witness light. There is no truth and no law to support it of two things occupying the same space. It is only as the one truthful consciousness occupies the one space that all is evidenced, whole and perfect. You know that God is mind, and mind is form. You know that God, mind, and form are one, unconditioned and unconditional. You know that nothing is given or withheld. God is, and that is unconditional as all. You know that nothing changes God, nor ever can, into something different, less, diminished, unavailable. All form is, therefore, the fullness of God, the exact same substance, quality, nature, and character as God, simply experienced as five senses and three dimensions through the lens or faculty of mind. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. This is absolute truth. Yet, if it is not lived moment by moment in the most practical of ways, it remains invisible to experience. We cannot have a dual consciousness. We cannot know the truth of the infinity, omnipresence, and eternity of form, yet in practical experience treat form as limited, lacking, and variable, and expect to see its truth. Make the inner as the outer, and make the outer as the inner. We have to be truthful being, all-inclusively, in and out, as one, with no part or place or activity remaining untruthful in order to witness truth. We have to be truth to behold it as experience, just as the sun has to be light in order to behold light throughout the universe. I am the light of the world. I am what I experience. If I am dark in any area of my being, then I witness that dark as that area of experience. If I wish to witness light, the truth of experience, I have to be the light I am to witness. If we know the truth of life, yet accept illness, disease, or injury as an entity in and of its own self, we cannot expect to experience life and life alone. We cannot expect to experience healing. Life witnesses itself alone. Therefore, we have to be the consciousness that is all-inclusive life, in and out as one, and we have to act as life alone in order to witness life experientially, health, vitality, and wholeness. I am the life of the world. What did hinder you? Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. If we know that God is love, therefore that love is unconditionally omnipresent, never separate or apart, never absent, yet we accept loneliness, separation, or hate, we cannot expect to experience loving and fulfilling relationship, whether as individual, family, neighborhood, country, or world. Love witnesses itself alone. Therefore, we have to be the consciousness that is all-inclusive love, in and out as one, in order to witness love experientially. God is love. If we know the truth of infinity and omnipresence, therefore the truth that all form is nothing but infinity and omnipresence also, yet accept limited or lacking or incomplete resource, including dollars, opportunity, clients, students, or any other type of form, we cannot expect to experience abundance, intangible experience. We will forever experience a lack of fulfilling form, activity, and condition, including that of dollars. All form, all being, body, thing, amount, activity, condition, and place is already and forever infinite and omnipresent, the fullness of God. There is never incompleteness, lack, limitation, separation of form, any more than there is ever a lack of math or incompleteness or separation of numbers. No one being, place or thing or condition lacks a part of its wholeness and completeness of fulfillment. Such lack or incompleteness is utterly impossible. God is indivisible, and because God is form, form is indivisible. Only whole, infinite and omnipresent form exists. No form can for a minute lack a part of its wholeness and completeness, its oneness, its godness. God is light, and in him is no darkness at all, no incompleteness, no lack, no limitation, no separation, no apartness. By the degree we know this truth and live it in every practical way, we tangibly experience it. If any category of form seems to be lacking or of limited supply, if there seems to be a need of any form of good whatsoever, there is never a need to believe that appearance. That which seems to be lacking and needed is not in truth. The whole exists right there, fully manifest, visible, and tangible, even as material sense observes a lack. The practical living of this truth evidences it, sometimes in the most miraculous way. Here is the secret revealed in a more detailed account of Jesus feeding the multitudes. 3 days and nights the multitudes remained, and none had aught to eat. And his disciples said, "Where shall we get enough of food to feed them all? There are 4,000 men, besides the women and the little ones." And Jesus said, "How many loaves have you?" They answered, 7, and some little fish. And Jesus said, "Go to and seat the people." Jesus is not hindered or delayed by the appearance of insufficient food. He knows no such insufficiency. He lives by the all-present and practical truth. Hence he seats the people in readiness to eat of the plentiful food, the food ye know not of, which infallibly appears as the form of satisfying food through spiritual consciousness. The disciples' material sense is still unable to see it. They see only limited form rather than the infinity of form truly present. And when the people were sat down, Jesus looked to heaven and spoke the word, raised his consciousness and experienced the Word of God, speaking as him. He felt the presence of God happening within, felt the presence of oneness, completeness, fulfillment, happening as him. And then he broke the 7 loaves in little bits, and likewise cut the fish. And every bit of bread became a loaf, and every piece of fish became a fish. The 12 went forth and gave to every one. The people ate, and they were filled, and all the fragments that were left over were gathered up, and there were 12 baskets full. What seems to lacks only to material sense that believes appearance to be reality in and of its own self. To spiritual consciousness, only wholeness, fulfillment, completeness exists in and out as one form, one actuality, one practical truth, the one and only reality. My friends, whatever seems to lack in your life, whatever is discordant, unhappy, diseased, insecure, whatever problem has so far refused to yield, believe it not, but realize the absolute and practical one truth alone. Study this little book over and over until its truth and way has become the very blood of your blood and bone of your bone. Then start giving of the little you have in truth, and you will witness the little becoming the whole, never running dry, sufficient and satisfying for all concerned, infallibly witnessed as all need fulfilled, with 12 baskets full left over.